At exactly 5:14 a.m. on the morning of my wedding, my smartphone vibrated against the marble vanity with a message that shattered my remaining biological ties forever. "Your brother's trip matters more than your little wedding," my dad texted me. By dawn, my parents and my golden child brother Julian had already flown out of the country for a luxury yacht vacation. They left me entirely alone, believing my marriage to a low-level programmer was a pathetic, insignificant event. But I didn't cry. Hours later, I walked down the aisle on the arm of a legendary national icon I'd known for only 3 weeks, smiling serenely into the cameras. By Monday morning, the cinematic clip of our majestic ceremony had hit over 1 million views globally. My phone rang uncontrollably as my mother called exactly 61 times in a state of absolute, unhinged hysteria, screaming through the receiver. "Your dad's boss saw it. He knows everything, Lisa. We're completely ruined." To comprehend the staggering corporate and emotional fallout that took place over the next 48 hours, you must first understand the toxic, highly transactional nature of the Webb household. We lived in Silverbridge, an elite, wealthy corporate suburb where human worth was evaluated exclusively by professional titles, country club status, and public displays of material wealth. My father, Kenneth Webb, was a deeply ambitious, intensely stressed senior regional logistics manager at Vanguard Global Consortium, a multi-billion-dollar international logistics and aerospace conglomerate. Kenneth spent his entire life desperately clawing his way up the corporate ladder, obsessed with earning a promotion to the executive suite and capturing the attention of the company's reclusive, legendary billionaire founder and global CEO, Alistair Vance. My mother, Eleanor, was a deeply superficial social climber who treated our family dynamic like a corporate public relations firm, measuring her maternal affection based entirely on which child could provide her with the highest level of neighborhood bragging rights. From our early childhood, my younger brother, Julian, was designated as the absolute, untouchable golden child of the family. Julian was highly charismatic, incredibly manipulative, and completely obsessed with achieving social media stardom as a luxury lifestyle influencer. My parents eagerly funded his fragile, narcissistic ego, burying themselves in high-interest personal credit lines and taking out massive secondary mortgages on our home to pay for his designer wardrobes, luxury sports cars, and expensive international trips. Meanwhile, I was treated as an inconvenient, invisible background character. I was the quiet, deeply analytical daughter who found solace in the sterile clarity of computer science, advanced algorithms, and data structures, rather than the empty, gossiping theater of my mother's country club luncheons. Because I refused to participate in their shallow games of social pretense, my father treated my professional aspirations with open contempt. He used his corporate influence to place me in a low-paying, entry-level data processing position at his regional office, constantly telling our extended family that I was a financial failure who lacked the drive or intelligence to survive in the high-stakes corporate world. What my family completely failed to realize was that their total underestimation of my intellect was the greatest tactical shield I could have ever asked for. Free from their suffocating surveillance and low expectations, I spent my late nights in my modest apartment developing a series of highly sophisticated, proprietary machine learning asset allocation models and automated trading algorithms. I possessed a rare, instinctual understanding of market liquidity and corporate distressed debt structures. By the time I turned 25, I had quietly established my own independent private equity firm, Cipher Capital. I was incredibly careful with my legal setups. I buried my absolute ownership of Cipher Capital deep behind an ironclad wall of elite corporate attorneys, anonymous trusts, and secure shell corporations. While my father viewed me as a struggling, broke data analyst barely scraping by on a microscopic salary, Cipher Capital was quietly generating tens of millions of dollars in annual revenue.
My firm was aggressively acquiring prime commercial real estate, high-yield tech patents, and corporate debt packages across the state. I chose to wear simple clothing, drove a reliable but modest hatchback, and allowed my parents to believe whatever convenient lies kept them satisfied. I used my absolute financial independence to construct a life of profound security, far away from their toxic emotional dynamics, never revealing a single dollar of my true net worth to the people who shared my DNA. The entire trajectory of my life shifted permanently when I met my husband, Alistair. Despite being the reclusive, brilliant majority owner and global CEO of Vanguard Global Consortium, the absolute supreme ruler of the very conglomerate my father worked for, Alistair possessed a deep humility, a brilliant analytical mind, and a total disdain for the shallow posturing of corporate elitism. He preferred operating completely under a low-profile guise, frequently traveling to local independent technology incubators to work directly with young software developers. We met at a private technology gala where Cipher Capital was the primary anonymous donor. We immediately formed a profound, life-altering connection built on genuine intellectual respect, absolute honesty, and a shared quiet nature. For over a year, we built our relationship completely insulated from the toxic noise of the outside world. When I casually mentioned to my mother that I was dating a man named Alistair, who worked in software development, her superficial mind instantly filled with intense disappointment. My father openly sneered at the news, declaring that an ordinary, low-level programmer was a pathetic embarrassment to the Webb family's social ambitions. They completely refused to ask for his last name, declined to look at a single photograph of his face, and flatly refused to waste a single weekend hosting a dinner to meet a man who didn't possess a corporate vice president title. I smiled quietly and kept the truth entirely to myself, realizing that their profound blindness was a gift from the universe. When Alistair and I began planning our wedding, we chose to host an elegant, deeply private celebration at the breathtaking Cliffside Pavilion, a premier private estate overlooking the ocean. I extended a formal, handwritten invitation to my parents and brother, genuinely hoping that on this one monumental milestone, my father would step up, show a modicum of paternal warmth, and fulfill his traditional duty of walking his eldest daughter down the aisle. However, my family viewed my wedding not as a joyous family milestone, but as an annoying, low-status inconvenience that offered absolutely zero opportunity for their relentless social climbing. The true breaking point arrived just 4 days before the ceremony. Julian discovered that a minor, mid-tier luxury lifestyle brand had offered him a promotional partnership. Driven by pure, unhinged vanity, Julian demanded that the family immediately fly out to the Mediterranean on a luxury yacht excursion to film his promotional influencer content, completely ignoring the fact that the dates directly overlapped with my long-planned wedding day. My parents didn't hesitate for a single second. To them, Julian's public influencer image and the opportunity to take first-class photos on a yacht were infinitely more valuable than my marriage. They quietly packed their expensive designer luggage, finalized their flight bookings, and slipped away from the estate in the middle of the night without having the basic human decency to tell me to my face. The cold, transactional text message my father sent me at dawn was the final definitive proof that our biological connection was permanently severed. As I sat in the bridal suite reading that message, a wave of absolute freezing detachment washed over my soul. I realized that crying over their abandonment was a complete waste of my life's energy. They were so blinded by their toxic entitlement and their desperate pursuit of status that they had completely forgotten that the world has a beautiful, poetic way of balancing the scales of justice. The magnificent turn of events began 3 weeks prior to the wedding day. Through my independent philanthropic work with Cipher Capital, I had attended an elite international charity gala where I was introduced to Chief Justice Arthur Sterling, a universally revered, legendary retired statesman and one of the most respected moral authorities in the country. Arthur was deeply impressed by my computational finance achievements and my quiet humility, and over the course of several long conversations, we developed an immediate, profound bond of mutual respect. When I quietly shared the painful reality that my biological family was planning to completely boycott my wedding out of pure status-driven malice, the legendary retired Chief Justice was filled with an absolute righteous indignation. He looked at me with immense warmth and made a solemn, unyielding promise. If my biological father chose to abandon his sacred duty on my milestone day, he would personally fly across the country to walk me down the aisle as a badge of absolute honor. When the massive oak doors of the glass pavilion finally swung open on my wedding afternoon, a collective, audible gasp echoed through the entire congregation of guests. I stood at the entrance, completely breathtaking in my hand-embroidered lace bridal gown, leaning confidently on the arm of Chief Justice Arthur Sterling. The distinguished statesman stood tall, his posture regal and commanding, his chest adorned with honorary state medals, guiding me down the aisle with an air of absolute protective pride. Waiting for me at the altar, looking incredibly handsome in a perfectly tailored midnight blue tuxedo, was Alistair Vance. The contrast was absolutely magnificent. The abandoned daughter walking down the aisle with a legendary national icon toward the reclusive global billionaire ruler of the corporate world, all while smiling with a serene, unshakable joy. A high-profile media team captured the entire sequence in stunning, high-definition cinematography, documenting every single second of the profound love, elegance, and unyielding triumph that filled the room.
By Saturday evening, a beautifully edited 2-minute cinematic clip of our wedding walk was uploaded to an elite global business and lifestyle network platform by one of our prominent guests. The description simply read, "A legendary walk for a beautiful couple. Chief Justice Arthur Sterling walks the brilliant founder of Cipher Capital to marry the reclusive global leader, Alistair Vance." The algorithmic wave was swift and absolute. By Monday morning, the clip had exploded across global social media channels, rapidly accumulating over 1 million views, trending at the very top of corporate and lifestyle feeds worldwide. The viral video was accompanied by thousands of comments praising our elegance, celebrating Alistair's rare public appearance, and honoring the presence of the legendary Chief Justice. The ultimate corporate reckoning struck my father like a physical blow at exactly 9 a.m. on Monday morning. Kenneth Webb walked into the sprawling, high-tech regional headquarters of Vanguard Global Consortium, dressed in his finest suit and carrying a leather portfolio, fully expecting to receive his long-awaited promotion from his direct superior, the Vice President of Regional Operations. He had spent the entire weekend on the Mediterranean yacht, bragging to his colleagues via corporate email about his elite family travels and his son's rising influencer status. But the moment he stepped into the executive suite, he found the atmosphere completely frozen. The entire regional executive board, alongside the corporate legal team, was gathered around the massive boardroom projection screen, watching the viral wedding clip on a continuous loop. The vice president turned around, his face completely twisted in a look of absolute, unadulterated horror and disgust as he looked at my father. He recognized the groom instantly. It was Alistair Vance, the supreme leader, majority shareholder, and absolute owner of the entire multi-billion-dollar global conglomerate. The realization hit the executive board like a thunderbolt. Senior Regional Manager Kenneth Webb had completely abandoned the wedding of his own biological daughter to the absolute owner of the company, publicly labeling the global CEO's wedding as a little party in his corporate communications, all to take his lazy son on an influencer vacation. Before my father could even attempt to find his voice or formulate a single word of defense, the corporate legal team stepped forward, presenting a binder of immediate, binding executive decrees.
Due to his egregious breach of corporate ethics, his public misrepresentation of the company's leadership, and the immediate security risks associated with his hostile family conduct, Kenneth Webb's employment was summarily terminated with cause, effective immediately. His executive security credentials were physically stripped from his neck. His high-yield corporate pension lines were permanently frozen, and his name was placed on an absolute, permanent blacklist across the global logistics and aerospace industries. He was escorted out of the multi-million-dollar skyscraper by 4 armed security guards in full view of his entire professional staff. His 40-year career completely dismantled in less 15 minutes. That was the exact moment my mother, Eleanor, began her frantic, hysterical assault on my phone line, calling exactly 61 times in less than 2 hours from the airport terminal in Greece. When I finally pressed the speakerphone button while sitting in the quiet comfort of our luxury penthouse, her voice came shrieking through the line, completely choked with frantic tears and ugly, unhinged panic.
Lisa? Oh my God, Lisa, please answer me. My mom screamed, her voice cracking violently. Your dad's boss saw the wedding video clip. He recognized your husband, Alistair, as the absolute global owner of Vanguard. The corporate offices just shut down all of our accounts. Your father has been fired, our executive insurance is gone, and the bank is calling in the high-interest personal loans we took out for Julian's trip. They are foreclosing on the Silverbridge estate, Lisa. We have nothing left. You have to tell Alistair to fix this. Tell him we are your family. We didn't know who he was. You have to save us. I leaned back against the plush velvet sofa, looking out over the beautiful, sunlit skyline of the city, feeling absolutely no anger, only a profound, peaceful sense of absolute justice. I told you his name was Alistair, Mother, I said, my voice incredibly calm, smooth, and completely devoid of any emotional hostility. But you were so consumed by Julian's shallow online vanity and your desperate pursuit of country club status that you didn't even have the basic human decency to look at his face or learn his last name. You abandoned your eldest daughter on her wedding day, flying away at dawn because you believed my life was small and insignificant. I built my own empire through cipher capital, and I married a man who values my mind, my heart, and my dignity. I will not spend a single dollar of my capital, nor will my husband waste a single ounce of his corporate authority to shield you from the absolute ruin you brought upon yourselves. Enjoy the remainder of your trip because you have no home to return to. I hung up the phone and permanently blocked their numbers from my life, completely closing the door on their toxic malice forever. The financial liquidation of the Webb family was total and beautifully poetic. Without my father's corporate salary and with their credit lines permanently frozen, Julian's luxury yacht trip vanished overnight, leaving them stranded in a cheap foreign transit hotel. The bank moved swiftly to foreclose on their sprawling suburban estate in Silverbridge, seizing their luxury vehicles and assets to satisfy their massive mountain of accumulated debts. Stripped of every remaining ounce of their false family pride, my parents and brother were forced to move into a tiny, cramped 2-bedroom rental apartment in a rundown industrial town, completely abandoned by the wealthy country club socialites they had spent decades trying to impress. Meanwhile, back in our beautiful world, the sun shone brightly over our private estate. Alistair and I continued to expand Cipher Capital and Vanguard Global, investing millions of dollars into high-end technology scholarships for independent young women, and funding massive civic development projects that created real, lasting change in the world. Surrounded by my brilliant husband, my noble mentor, Chief Justice Arthur Sterling, and a community built on absolute integrity, I walked forward into a future of magnificent abundance, completely free from the ruins of the past, focused entirely on the beautiful life we had created from the light of our own choices. This story demonstrates a profound sociological and psychological truth. Family structures built entirely on transactional greed, superficial favoritism, and material narcissism are inherently unstable and destined for eventual self-destruction. When parental figures evaluate human worth strictly through the lens of social climbing and public clout, they lose the capacity for genuine strategic foresight. The golden child's unearned indulgence inevitably fosters a culture of incompetence and financial recklessness, while the systematic exclusion of the independent child forces them to develop real, unshakable intellect, resilience, and financial capability. In the grand arena of life, simulated status will always crumble when confronted by genuine institutional leverage, and those who exploit their own family will eventually run out of resources to burn. When your own biological family labels your major life milestones as a little party and abandons you at dawn to cater to the vanity of a favored sibling, they have permanently broken the sacred bond of parenthood. Do not waste a single drop of your precious emotional energy begging for their presence, crying over their betrayal, or attempting to convince them of your value. True self-reliance means having the absolute courage to stand tall in your own light, form high-integrity alliances with mentors who recognize your true worth, and let the quiet brilliance of your achievements speak for you. Establish an ironclad wall of legal, emotional, and financial boundaries that no toxic parasite can ever cross. When the consequences of their own blindness inevitably bring them to their knees, let the unyielding reality of their choices be their only inheritance. Protect your peace, cherish the family you choose, and never look back at the darkness you left behind.